Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Marina Antunes with the Spark CG Society. Very excited to be here to introduce you all to Ryan Braund, who is the writer, director, producer, animator, actor of his feature film debut, Absolute Denial, which is a great little sci-fi thriller. We're going to talk a little bit about that movie in a bit, but I kind of wanted to start by getting to know you a little bit more, Ryan. Can you talk a little bit about your lead up to and into movies? Like, where did your passion for filmmaking start?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it was when I was probably around 13, and every week, every weekend or Friday night, my family would make a big deal out of everyone getting together, renting a movie from the DVD shop, and just getting a takeaway and watching a film. And it was like it was the best moment for me. That's when I knew I absolutely loved films. And since then I've always wanted to make my own. And I started making off small animations just in my bedroom, using whatever resources I could find. And they sort of defied the odds a little bit and started, doing quite well at festivals. And I thought, okay, this is cool. I want to do more of this. And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to make a feature film. So that was something I was, continually aiming for. And I did attempt to make a couple of feature films after university, where I studied television and film design. And yeah, it never quite clicked together. It never quite worked. And I think that was because I was always trying live action. I kind of gravitated, particularly through university, I gravitated towards live action. And something just wasn't quite sitting right. And then for Absolute Denial, I went back to my roots, I guess, and went back to animation, and it just felt right again. All that, inspiration and creativity just kind of flooded back. So yeah, that's kind of where I started and how it led to this point.
I'm curious, if you're already making short films and they were clearly quite successful, why did you even bother with school? I'm curious because you get a lot of filmmakers said, oh, I didn't go to film school, or I dropped out of film school. So what was what prompted you to want to go to school and get that formal education?
I think it was making a career out of film was just completely unknown. Like I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know the best route to take. So I thought it would be better for me to be surrounded by other people who wanted to make film as well. And that just seemed like the natural, progression for me. I could learn how to, I could have access to, kit and studio space that I wouldn't necessarily otherwise. And and I got to meet all these great people who were also interested in filmmaking. And they actually collaborated with me on a couple of projects. The producer, Chris Hees, of this feature, I actually met through someone at university. So, it all kind of, it just seemed like the natural next step for me. And it ended up paying off. Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious, you mentioned too that during university, you were kind of leaning more towards live action rather than animation, though you started, your roots were in animation, and clearly Absolute Denial is an animated film. What do you think it was about being at uni and maybe the people surrounding you that was leaning you more in that direction than animation?
I think it was because when I was younger, I definitely watched a lot more live action than I did animation. Even though I loved animation, I was always fascinated by the spectacle of blockbusters and going to the cinema and just watching a really cool live action blockbuster or something. I'm not sure, but so yeah, I think because I enjoyed watching live action, I thought, well, that's what I want to make. And it's only until recently that I realized I don't think I had access to a lot of the animation that I really love now. Like, because there's a lot of mature Japanese animation, you know, like Satoshi Kon's films, Perfect Blue and Millennium Actress, you know, and Ghost in the Shell, which blew me away the first time I saw it. All those films, I didn't, you know, it's not the kind of films that you rent and watch with your family when you're younger. I discovered them a lot later on. And when I saw these films, that's when I thought, right, okay, you know, this is it. This is what was missing. This is what I want to make. And then I started to transition back to animation.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Absolute Denial. So I understand that this is, I don't know if it's an extension or a kind of rework of a script that had made the rounds through like a couple of competitions in 2018. So you've been sitting with this for quite a while. Where did the concept first come up? When did you really start thinking about this project?
The concept, I knew I wanted to make a sci-fi because I love sci-fi. I knew I wanted it to be animation, and I remember reading. I can't remember how I came across it now, but I remember reading online about this. I guess it would be like a social experiment, and it was a guy was trying to prove that any sufficiently intelligent computer could escape its confinements if as long as it had that interaction with a human being, because it could hack the human being's brain. And that was really, really fascinating to me. I thought that was really cool, and I thought there was something there that could be used for a minimalist battle of two great minds kind of game of chess on film. I thought it could be really cool. So I started writing that, and it did take a while to finish because I'm sure it's probably evident to a lot of programmers and coders that I don't know the first thing about coding. So I had to do a ton of research, and I was contacting programmers and coders and guys who specialize in machine learning, and I was asking for their advice. I'd send them the scripts and they would go over it, and they gave some great feedback, and they helped keep it grounded, but I did take some artistic liberties at some point. It kind of started there, I guess. And I think it was just I didn't quite intend to make it when I wrote it. It was just a bit of practice for me, and I thought if I didn't intend on making it, then I could dream up anything. You know, it could go anywhere. I wouldn't have to worry about the budget. So I had free reign, and I just went for it. And then I submitted it to Austin Film Festival and Write LA competition, and it did quite well. So that's when I thought, okay, maybe this script is good enough to pursue, and maybe I could. It's mostly set in one location, so I thought, why not try and make it?
And did it start as live action?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, it did actually, yeah, it did, yeah. And then when I actually thought, how maybe I could make this live action, but no, it was I had to adapt it to make it fit animation.
Okay.
I put down
Yeah,
some of the dialogue.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that's changed, because one of the things that I find really interesting is, having worked in both mediums, I'm wondering, how do you start to kind of look at what shape your project is going to take? Well, and it sounds like animation kind of came as sort of a second, it wasn't the first go-to. So I'm curious, what was it specifically, and what has to change when you start thinking, okay, this is actually going to be an animated project? What starts to change in your mind about how to approach actually the creating process?
The creating process, not a lot, to be honest, because I wanted it to feel. I wanted it to have this, it could be live action, it could be animation. I didn't really want to change it that much. it did get to the point where I thought, you know, if this is animation, you can't have too much back and forth dialogue. There is a bit of that. There's quite a bit of that in the film, but you know, I had to cut some of that down, and it became a lot more show rather than tell. So especially towards the end, the final act. But in terms of approach to actually producing it, no, I didn't really. I don't think it affected the process that much, really. No.
Well, when did you actually start thinking about making this?
Where was I? I was living in Japan at the time, actually. And I sort of, I had almost given up on filmmaking because as I said before, I'd attempted to make feature films a few times, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't quite clicking. And I suffer from quite bad anxiety and bad paranoia, and just the constant setbacks and defeats, you know, was just, it got really dark, you know, it got really bad. I was really struggling at some point, and I decided to just pack it in indefinitely, and just I went traveling just to kind of get away from it all for a bit. And while I was traveling, I just kind of had this thought where I just thought, this is, if I don't do this, if I don't try, I will always regret it. You know, even if this feature film sucks, at least I tried, you know, at least I gave it my best shot. So I quit the job I had at the time, and I came back to the UK, and I just locked myself away, and I just forced myself to just output this this animation, this feature film. And you know, I'm looking back, it was a killer, but I'm so glad I did it. I'm really glad.
Did you always intend on doing the entire thing yourself?
Yeah, because on the previous projects, because I was working with other people, you know, every time I thought that the results weren't looking as good as I expected, I would always kind of cut the project short. You know, I'd say, you know, let's leave it. It's not working. It's not working out. And I got really tired of just constantly letting other people down. So I thought, right, if it's just me, then you know, there's no one else to disappoint other than myself. So yeah, that's my approach. And when I guess I did rope some people in. I got their voice actors in, but they were fantastic. Actually, they were really good. So there was a small team of us, but mostly for the most part, it was just me in my room.
You know, you talk about you know, the struggle and the struggle of working through this anxiety and this need to do this for yourself. And that's such a, I mean, I find that everybody, not just creatives, we all sometimes struggle with this pressure to do something, or to be better, or to do something else. And it's hard to make that leap to think to do this for yourself. And then the actual process of locking yourself in a room and actually doing this when you're already feeling kind of bummed about everything, that can be really hard. I can only imagine how difficult that would be to commit to doing something on your own when you're already kind of feeling down about stuff. Can you talk a little bit about how the process of like actually working your way through the project help you feel better about sort of where you were heading and how you were feeling at the time?
Yeah, it did actually. I mean, it was, it wasn't a healthy process, definitely not. But and looking back, actually, I can't believe I actually did it, because it was some 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for the first 3 months, and then I let myself have a day off after that, so it'd be 6 days a week, 10 or 12 hours a day for the remaining 6 months or whatever. I can't remember, but I don't know. I was in this. That's how desperate I was. I was so, you know, I was determined to get this done. And the thing with a project that size, you know, once you've done a little bit, once you're in, you know, you might as well just keep going. You know, you've committed, you might as well just keep going. And the way I was producing it, I would animate a scene at a time. So actually seeing shots and scenes cut together, and with the voice acting as well, and it started to come to life, you know, that kept me going. That was fantastic. It really is like movie magic. That's what I love about animation. You know, it's all these raw elements coming together, and suddenly you've got characters and a story unfolding. You know, it's fantastic. I love it. It never gets old.
Let's talk a little bit about your process, because I found your process was a little bit different than what I would assume would be the general way of approaching making a film, because you did all of you captured all the voice acting first, right? And then went ahead and did the acting, which I want to hear a little bit more about. So can you talk a little bit about the steps that were involved in actually the process of actually making the film?
Yeah, okay. I'm not actually sure when I made that decision, but I think it was just it just seemed logical to record the voices first. I don't know why. I think because what I wanted to do and what I did end up doing was cast the voice actors, get them to record their lines, and then I cut the entire film just using their voices on a timeline. And that was actually really, really eye-opening. It was great it gives you a really good sense of the pacing, you know, how the film's going to pace. And it was letting me know which lines are landing and which ones aren't working quite so well. So I ended up cutting a bit in that stage until I had this nice, you know, basically an audio file of the film. So that was really, really useful. And then I would just animate to the voices basically, which became, for the acting, for the physical part, that was a challenge, because I had to, it's me in the film playing the main part. And it's literally me kind of just running around the house. But for all the dialogue, the movements of my mouth had to match the Nick's performance. So that was very difficult. Yeah, that was really hard.
And then after everything was acted, you rotoscoped the whole thing, right?
Yeah. So I acted out, and then I would import the footage onto my computer. I'd export every single frame. 12 frames per second, export every frame. And then just using an old iPad and some free drawing software, I would just draw around every frame. So I think it ended up being something like 30,000 frames, something more than 30,000 frames in the end.
Was it a bit of a, did you have a couple of not false starts, but did you try a couple of different methods to animating the project, or was it kind of like the first shot, the style that you went with?
Yeah, no, I didn't try different methods, but there was definitely a quality difference between the earlier stuff, and you know, I got used to the way of working, and I got faster and more efficient, and it was just looking better and cleaner. And then this was about maybe halfway through the filmmaking process, and it was great because the animation was looking better, but it was heartbreaking because I thought, you know, when I saw the film playing back as a full edit, you could see the massive difference in quality between the different scenes and different cuts. So yeah, I think there was one day when I just kind of sat there trying to decide if I should go back and reanimate not the entire first half, but a few scenes from the beginning. And I did. I ended up going back and redoing them. That was heartbreaking, but it needed to be done.
So I'm curious, were you doing, did you act out the entire thing in one go, or were you doing it kind of like in scenes or in sections and acts? How did that look like?
In scenes, yeah, I'd break it up. Yeah. That was for two reasons really. One, as I said before, it was nice to complete a scene and know that it was working and know that I was happy with it. And the second reason was just because it broke up the process a bit. You know, it was quite nice to spend maybe a week animating and then have a couple of days of actually, you know, moving around and not just sat in a chair all day. So yeah, it was very piecemeal. I would just do each section almost in chronological order, I think. Yeah.
How long did the process take from when you started to when you actually had your first sort of like assembly cut?
I think it was 9 months. I think it was from.
And we didn't mention this at the beginning, but you worked on this through COVID, right?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I actually started just before the pandemic kind of broke out. And my original plan was to get possibly a part-time job and then just to keep me afloat, and then I would work on the film when I could. But yeah, there was, you know, we were under lockdown restrictions. We couldn't leave the house. So in a way, yeah, I just thought, well, how, you know, I'll just use this time and be as productive as possible. So I just worked all the way through the pandemic. So yeah, it was interesting. You know, I guess I got lucky, really. Yeah.
You talk a little bit about, even from the get-go, how you thought this idea of having of a minimalist approach to this story, which I think is so fascinating because it kind of is, it's almost counterintuitive to the size of the story that you're telling. Like you're telling this massive story of, okay, so it's not maybe massive story because it's about like one guy and one AI, but the ideas and the concepts are so big and almost mind-numbing in places. You're like, oh, this could actually happen, and it's really, really scary. But the visual style is, like you say, minimalist, and it almost makes you lean in a little bit closer to the screen to kind of be like, okay, what's happening here? Because the two work really, really well together. And I think that's just fascinating and speaks a little bit to your intuitiveness for like just filmmaking in general. I'm curious about like the films that inspire you. Are they films that kind of lean towards the minimalist? You talk a little bit about, you know, how it was some of the big blockbusters that really spoke to you as well. And films like these, you know, Satoshi Kon's movies are like, they're very big, they're very visually bright and kind of in your face. Yeah. And this kind of goes a little bit against that, but it feels very much like unique and appropriate for the story that you're telling.
Yeah, well, that was the intention, really. You know, it didn't feel like a film that had to be colorful. You know, I almost, I mean, I wanted it to look graphic, really high contrast black and whites. And I think that kind of complements the, you know, the binary nature of the concept. You know, black, white, 0, 1s. And I've always loved playing with light in film as well. And it was a nice opportunity to play with these really, I don't know, like a very geometric environment, and having spotlights and big circles of light and long shadows. You know, it was really fun. And the idea was to have to complement the theme of man v machine. I thought it was really nice to have hand drawn animation. It was like this juxtaposition of telling a modern tale, sci-fi tale with shades of cyberpunk, but using, you know, traditional hand-drawn animation. I thought that was, I don't know, it just felt really nice. It really likes, like, you know, organic versus digital. Yeah, no, it's so yeah, I was definitely conscious of that when I was thinking of the style. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's brilliant because it works. It also works on this level of like it feels man-made, like it feels human and not computerized, which also speaks to the overall themes, which I think is fantastic. It just works on so many levels.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm curious if you can go into a little bit more detail about like your days. So you were talking about how you had, when you started, you had 12-hour days, 10, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. What did your typical day look like?
Yeah. I would get up, I'd have like a really quick breakfast. And it's gonna sound really boring. I would just sit at the desk, and I would probably be halfway through animating a shot. So all the frames would be on my iPad, and yeah, I'd maybe put some headphones on and listen to some lo-fi hip hop or some podcasts or something, something to chill me out, or take my mind, because it's so mind numbing. It's the almost the exact same frame over and over again. I needed something to keep the brain active. And that was it. I'd just plump myself there and I'd just go for it and just animate. And then at lunchtime, I would something to eat, go for a run for half an hour, come back and continue.
How did you stay motivated, other than like the fact that at the end of a couple of days you might have something cohesive, like in a full scene, let's say? How did you stay motivated through the days? Like, were there days where you just didn't want to do it? How did you push through those days?
There weren't actually, no. Surprisingly, there was nothing else I wanted to do. My mind was so set. I'm just so stubborn, I guess. It was just, I was so set on just getting this done. I knew that if I took a day off or did something else, I'm just procrastinating. I'm just putting it off. And I was so excited to finish. I just wanted I wanted the end to come as soon as possible. Not that I didn't enjoy the process. It's just, when you're doing it on your own, it can get a bit heavy.
And you say the whole process took you 9 months. When did you decide that you could take a day off? When did you?
I think when it was just really badly impacting my health. I was my knees were starting to go a bit. I don't know. They were aching a bit, and my mental health as well. It started to get to me a bit. That whole, even though it was cathartic to finish the project, and it really did help. Actually going, pushing through it was still really difficult. So yeah.
Sorry, I had a visitor that popped her head around the door.
Sorry.
I had somebody pop their head around the door, so I'm very distracted for a second there. Sorry about that. So it does at that point.
No worries. That's okay.
I'm really curious.
No, that's fine.
I was really curious too about, because you were saying that you just wanted to get it finished, but you really took into consideration your health as well. And I think it's really fascinating that you put this challenge on yourself to do this project, and then you complete it. What's the next step once you have something that you've spent 9 months, you've put your everything into it? Like, how do you even, did you always know you were going to put it out there? How did you start to think, okay, it's ready to show somebody? Talk about the next sort of step once you've actually done all the work and you have this project. What's your next move forward?
I guess it did feel like I had finished it and I had some closure on it. But actually sending it to people to get their feedback was incredibly nerve-wracking. I sent it to Chris first, the producer, the co-producer. Luckily, his feedback was great. He loved it. And then we sent it to the sales agent, SC Films, and they loved it as well. So that was good. It was a good start. I showed it to family, but it wasn't, they're not the biggest animation fans or sci-fi fans. So they were very, very supportive, but I'm not sure they were blown away. So they've just got very high standards. And honestly, like I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it. But it just feels like every time we get into a big festival, it feels like just a wave of imposter syndrome just washes over me. I think, oh my God, I look at the lineup of the films and we are screening next to these huge films that have 10, 50 times the budget, and it's just unbelievable. I can't believe the response to it. It's been incredible.
And did you show it to anybody were you showing anything to anyone as you were actually making it? Or did your family just think you were crazy, locked in your room trying
just
to?
Crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Yeah, that was in part because I didn't really want to show them anything until it was finished. I think I might have sent it to some of the voice actors. I sent it to my brother as I was editing, because I really value his opinion. We have very similar tastes in films, so yeah, he actually he gives some great feedback, and he steered it in the right direction. But apart from that, no one else saw it. It was just me. But I'm really harsh on myself, so I'm the best person to review it, because if something's not quite right, then I'll be the first one to see it.
I'm curious, did you ever have a doubt or a second thought that maybe you were going in the wrong direction? And did that ever see
while I was animating?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There were days when I would flip flop. Actually, there were some days when I would watch a scene back, and I think, yes, that's how I wanted it. That looks great. I'm really happy with that. And then I would cut that scene with another scene that I've done earlier, and I'd be like, oh man, what am I doing? What is this? What? But that was very early stages, without the proper score from Troy, and without sound effects or anything, any of that. And it's really amazing how much of a difference all those little elements make. It really brings it, adds a new depth to it.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? Can you talk a little bit about Troy's score and how you guys worked together to build the basically like the soundtrack of the film, because it is really interesting and adds, like you say, a lot of depth and dimension to the story. And it's not overpowering. Like it doesn't like unnecessarily accentuate moments. That's like pet peeve of mine for scores. Yeah. It's perfectly balanced.
It's cool, isn't it? It's to be honest, I wish he should be in the chat as well, because he just went away, and I gave him some temp tracks, and he did work from those, but man, he really made it his own thing. I'm not even sure, we've never even spoken on Zoom or even to this day. It was all email exchanges. But yeah, I can't remember. I think he posted on Reddit. I think that's how I found him. Possibly, I can't remember. But I loved he only had a couple of videos, a couple of tracks on YouTube. But I loved them because they were sounds that he had recorded, like traffic in the streets. But then he would manipulate those sounds and create music from them, which I thought was amazing. I thought it was really cool. I think it complemented the film really well, because you're taking these natural sounds and you're distorting them, and creating a new environment out of them. I thought that was really cool, and yeah, I got in touch with him, and fortunately, he was really up for it. But as for his process, man, I'm not sure. I don't know. I gave him some temp tracks. I would let him watch scenes from the film, and he just went away and working incredibly quickly. Sometimes within a few days, he would send a track back, and it was amazing. It blew me away. It was beautiful, really beautiful music. Yeah, I'm hoping we can release the soundtrack as well. That'd be good.
So was he working as you were animating as well? Were you guys working in tandem to create the soundtrack, or did you send him like the full final project and he did the soundtrack to that?
No, we were working at the same time. So, but because he was a lot faster than I was, um, I would send him a scene, he would score that, and then I'd be like, right, I'll see you in a month's time with another scene. So yeah, over the course of the 9 months, he kind of worked on and off on it. And then when we had the finished film, he made the necessary tweaks, because it always looks different when you see it as a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a great. I was so lucky. All the voice actors, Troy, everyone was. They just completely understood. What I had envisioned, and they were incredible. And the voice actors just nailed it. I don't think I hardly asked for any retakes. Like, they just absolutely nailed it. It was fantastic. I was so lucky, really lucky.
Everybody saw the vision.
Yeah. Which I think the stars aligned a little bit, to be honest. I got really lucky. I'm really thankful for that. Yeah.
What is, like, out of all the things that happened over the production of Absolute Denial, what would you say was the biggest challenge, and how did you overcome that?
The biggest challenge. The biggest challenge was, just to keep going. I think just to keep going. I touched on that earlier. It was incredibly difficult. But as I said, I think it was a combination of knowing this is what I'd always wanted to do, and just stubbornness, just an absolute unmovable will just to get it done. But yeah, it's But I make it sound like it was easy just to power through, but actually, this film is the culmination of years and years of setbacks, and failures, and I think that all kind of built up and supercharged me for that moment where I just spent 9 months and just powered through it. So it's the result of all that baggage from a decade,
Channeling that energy into something positive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now, so this Absolute Now is now out there. It's at festivals. It's making the rounds. Are you already thinking about what's next, or are you just kind of basking in a little bit of this glory because it's well earned and well deserved?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. No, I'm raring to go on another one. Raring to go. We've actually, Chris and I are working on the next one as well, and we had a meeting this morning with the producer, actually, who's very interested. We've got potentially a company in Sheffield here where I live, who are interested in funding the next one. So it's opened a lot of doors, and yeah, I just need the time now. I've got another day job now. I'm working at a post-production facility, and it's the guys here. It's my bosses, actually, who are interested in funding my next film.
Oh, wow.
Which is so unbelievable. Yeah, it felt like it was meant to be. So yeah, I'm just trying to find the time to start writing again. It's been incredibly busy, but I miss it. I really miss writing and filmmaking, and I hate. This is the part I don't like, is jumping through all the hoops. I'm sure every single other filmmaker agrees. They just want to just make films back to back. But unfortunately, there are these frustrating periods in between where you just have to wait for money to come in and whatnot. But yeah, as soon as I get a chance, we're writing the treatment now for the film. Hopefully within a couple of months we'll have a script, a first draft, and then maybe next year we can start production on another animation.
Are you going to do it all yourself again, or are you going to be a little kinder to yourself this time?
I don't, no, it won't. It won't. I think most of it will be me. I think on my own, which is fine. You know, we will get a bit of help in. It just feels like a logical next step. I don't think I could go from absolute denial to suddenly directing, a huge team of animators or anything. I think that might be a bit overwhelming. So the next story, even though it's going to be bigger and better in every way, it's still, it's a step up from absolute denial, but not quite, it doesn't require millions to pull off. So yeah, I think if I have to, I'll do it on my own, fine, whatever. But hopefully we'll have a little bit more money to get some people in to help, yeah.
One of the things that I didn't touch on that I should have asked about this before, because you've mentioned it a couple of times and it's just now sort of percolated through my mind. You talked a little bit about how you created this thing basically on an iPad. And I think one of the things that, we hear about a lot is, technology and how it's sort of like democratized filmmaking. And in this instance, it really did. Like, did you have to upgrade spend any big chunks of money on upgrading your technology, or did you just kind of use what you had around and got resourceful?
Yeah, I used what I had, because I couldn't really afford to buy, the brand new iPad or the Apple Pencil or anything, or a new MacBook. The MacBook, the one I'm still using actually is a bit of a workhorse. It's from like 2015, but it's still going strong. I had a stylus and like an iPad from, what was it, generation 2 or something. It's really old stuff, but that's all I needed really. It did the job.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. But I sometimes feel like, well, maybe I need that little piece of equipment that'll make my life a little easier. But really, you could do it with just what you have. Just get creative about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And to be honest, I think the most important thing for me was the script.
Mm.
And I think that's the same for most films. If you have a great script and a great story, you can tell that in any way you want. And actually, I quite liked the lo-fi aesthetic of the older equipment. I don't know, it just felt like it fit the film, I think, because I didn't, the film doesn't take place in any specific era, but in the back of my mind I was thinking of early noughties, big clunky computers and big old tech basically. It fit. And some of the animation artifacts I actually left in there, so it's great because it gives this effect of dust from old film, like scratches, so you can see flecks of pencil and scratches and everything. I just think that looks fantastic. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, the film is wonderful. It's smart. It's really entertaining. It looks beautiful. Congratulations. The accolades are well deserved. Thank you for making the time to speak with me about the making of the movie. And for those of you that are watching that haven't seen Absolute Denial yet, it is screening at Spark through the duration of the festival, so October 28th to November 7th. It's your chance to see this amazing movie. And yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. It's been
no, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.